On November 13th, 1974, at 3:15 a.m., Ronald Defoe Jr. was watching television and then took a shotgun and killed his entire family. After committing the crime, he went to the police and told them about the gruesome incident in his home. The police officers took the boy into protective custody, but soon accused him of the crime. Ronald justified himself by claiming that he heard a voice that made him kill. During a medical examination, he was declared insane and placed in an institution. A year later, married couple George and Kathy decide to buy a country house. They have not been together long, and George still has difficulties in communicating with his beloved's children, because they remember their late father and miss him. In the newspaper, Kathy found an ad for a house on the avenue and, seeing the attractive price, persuaded her husband to look at the housing. The realtor showed the house, but, noticing mystical phenomena, was in no hurry to tell the couple about them. The woman was afraid to go down into the basement and breathed a sigh of relief when George and Kathy decided to buy the house. George knew about construction and was confused by the low price, so he wanted to know what the catch was. The realtor confessed that recently there had been a mass murder, but this did not frighten George, because people are killed, not the house. After moving into a new house, the family had fun, taking things apart and playing with the dog in the yard. In the evening, the head of the family became cold, and he went to the basement to put wood in the furnace. Hearing strange voices, George did not pay attention to it and returned to the bedroom. During the night, the spouses made love, and exactly at 3:15 a.m., the man saw behind his beloved a girl in a noose. The next day, the spouses continued to adjust to their new home. At one point, Katie heard her youngest daughter chatting with someone. Going up to Chelsea's bedroom, the woman realized that the girl was communicating with herself. She denied it and said she had met a girl named Jody, a name that belonged to Defoe's younger sister who had been murdered in the closet. A few minutes later, Katie noticed her daughter's disappearance. The couple went looking for Chelsea and found her in an old boathouse, standing on the edge of a boat. Frightened for the girl, the parents locked the old shed shut. During the night, little Michael woke up to go to the bathroom. The boy was afraid to go alone and tried to wake Billy, but his older brother was sleeping too soundly. Having gone to the bathroom, Michael tried to wash his hands, but at this moment, supernatural phenomena occurred, frightening the little boy. At the same time, George woke up hearing Harry barking. Looking out the window, he saw that the door of the boathouse was open, and a balloon flew out of there. Frightened for the girl, the man hurried to the barn and dove into the water, making sure no one was there. Spotting his youngest daughter Katie in the window, George saw another girl next to her. Frightened, he hurried to Chelsea's bedroom and saw that she was sleeping peacefully. After checking the closet and not noticing Jody being held by disembodied hands, George drifted off to sleep. The next morning, the couple discussed the previous night's incident. The man assumed that he had opened Billy's boathouse, for it was in his pocket that he had found the keys to the barn. A couple days later, he tried to talk to his son, but he denied his guilt. At the same time, something strange was going on in the house, and Katie saw a sign on the refrigerator that read, "Catch them. Kill them." In the evening, the couple decided to go out to a restaurant and hired a babysitter. Billy was against it, because he considered himself a grown-up boy, but when he saw the sexy nanny Lisa, he immediately changed his mind. Lisa, looking after 3 children, decided to tell him that she had been hired by the Defoe family before. Knowing the scary story that took place in the house, Lisa told the children about the murders. Once in Chelsea's room, Lisa mentioned the closet where Jody's body had been found. The girl stated to Lisa that she was a bad babysitter, and Jody wanted to punish her. The nanny scolded Chelsea, and Billy offered a bet that Liza would go into that very closet. Once the girl was inside, the door locked, and Jody appeared behind her. Lisa begged to be let go, went into shock, and tried to get out. Soon an ambulance arrived at the house and took the babysitter away, constantly muttering Jody's name. The children, having heard the terrible story, asked their parents to leave the house as soon as possible, but George was not ready to do so, for he had spent all his savings. In a fit of rage, he decided to take over the upbringing of the children and promised to be more cruel to them. Soon, George began to be tormented by nightmarish visions, and his health continued to deteriorate. Worried about her spouse's condition, Kathy suggested going to the hospital. The doctor found no physical problems or abnormalities and suggested seeing a psychiatrist. When George returned home, he saw a bear cub that had fallen to the ground. Looking up, the couple noticed Chelsea standing on the roof of the house. George grabbed the ladder, while Katie ran inside and tried to stop her daughter. At one point, Chelsea snapped and fell down, but her mother managed to grab her. Her strength was leaving her, and Katie was about to drop the girl, but George managed to save her. Explaining her act, Chelsea said that she wanted to see her late father, and Jody promised to help with that. George was shocked by everything that was happening and tried to be away from his family by moving into the basement. The next morning, he bullied Billy, forcing him to hold a log until the man chopped it up. Meanwhile, Katie found a priest, Father Clue, and told him of the horrors going on. She asked that the house be blessed as a protection against the paranormal. That evening, George was watching family videos and saw something scary in Billy's face. At exactly 3:15, he awoke to a voice coming from nowhere, ordering him to catch and kill. Hearing the dog barking, George grabbed an axe and, blinded by obsession, killed Harry. The next morning, the children searched for the dog and asked George if he had seen it, but he denied everything, despite Billy's suspicions. Soon a priest arrived at the house, responding to Katie's request. When he saw Chelsea, he invited her mother to a private conversation and told her about the teddy bear in the girl's hands. It turned out to be a toy of the late Jody Defoe, who was buried with her. Realizing that the house was not clean, Father Clue tried to consecrate the house, but the holy water burned the structure, and supernatural forces awoke in it, forcing the priest to flee. George's condition continued to deteriorate. He was haunted by an unknown voice driving him mad. Noticing changes in her husband's behavior, Kathy went to the archives and found information related to the house. It turned out that the house used to belong to a cult preacher who lived in the 15th century, Reverend Jeremiah Ketch, who held captive Native Americans and abused them. More than 20 bodies of people tortured by the preacher were found in the water under the old boathouse. From that day on, no family lived in the house for more than a month, for on the 28th day, someone would kill them. Meanwhile, George, who continued to hear the strange voice, went down into the cellar and, finding a secret passage, tried to get through it. Once, on the other side of the wall, he encountered the ghosts of captives and tortured Indians. Opening the door, George found himself in Ketch's private office and watched as he took his own life, covering the man in blood from head to toe. This caused George to become permanently obsessed and ready to listen to a voice ordering him to kill everyone. Kathy arrived at the priest's house and told him what she had learned of the history of the house. Father Clue did not believe in the reality of what was happening until the last, but once in the house, realized that the supernatural exists, and advised the woman to take the children as soon as possible and get as far away as possible. Upon arriving home, Kathy found her spouse in the boathouse and asked him to pack his things. An obsessed George almost killed his wife, but stopped at the last moment. Realizing that her husband's abusive behavior was the result of spiritual possession, Kathy ran into the house and asked the children to evacuate. Once down in the basement, she saw that George had prepared coffins for the entire family. The house wouldn't let the family out, so Chelsea suggested running through the roof. Billy kicked George in the head, and he fell to the ground. The children tried to escape, but a man grabbed Billy and saw him as a monster that needed to be. The mother defended her son and hit her husband with the butt of a shotgun. After tying George up, the family forced him into the boathouse, put him in a boat, and sailed away. The voiceover reported that the family left the house without living in it for 28 days. They never went back there again and took their personal belongings. In the final shot, we see Jody standing in the empty house, which regains its original state before the family's arrival. The girl begins to scream in terror, and a pair of disembodied hands drags her under the floor. This is where the movie ends.